So now let's dig a little bit deeper into these game dev tool nodes. For now, what I'm going to do is just pick one of these. Let's go ahead and stick with this. We'll call this pieces. So if you want to make this a little bit easier for you to read these nodes here, we can go ahead and say, okay, if we select this node here, well, selecting this node gives us options and parameters we can change up here in this view. So if we select this one, we can have one node visible as long as that little blue square is on. We can go ahead and view, say, the base, and then we can turn on the options for this blast node here. In order to make it so it's not blast node 1 and blast node 3, go ahead and double click where it says blast node 3 and we'll call this base geo. And for blast node 1, we'll call this pieces geo. So if we want to both turn on the visibility and show the parameters for the pieces geo blast node, just select it, turn on this little blue node here, and now we see our pieces over here, and then these are the things we can do, or the parameters that we can change for this pieces geo blast node. Now, before we get too deep, let's talk about just basic interface stuff. If you don't want to see your grid, or if your grid's going right through the middle of your object, which can sometimes happen if you're working natively in ZBrush, your 0, 0, 0 of your object is going to be like kind of in the middle of it. What you can do is you can turn off this grid here. And if you ever want to move your object, all you got to do is tab and then do a transform. Drop in a transform node. And then you can just, and how you connect nodes together is you click on this bottom one and you drag it out to the next node. And now you can see here the pieces geo is visible, but the transform node is selected. So let's say I go up here to translate and I type in 10 under translate X, nothing's going to happen because I only have this thing selected. I don't have it visible. However, if I turn on visibility for this node, you're going to see it translates 10 units in the X. If I want to, under translate, I can middle mouse click and you're going to see it's going to bring up a way for me to use sliders. And if you go up and down in this range right here, you're going to see we go up to the hundredths or the thousandths down here. So if I want to move this in units of, say, 1, I can middle mouse up to here. And then as I drag to the right, it's going to middle mouse that value. And if I drag to the left, it's going to lower that value. If I want to do it in tens, I can go up 1 and then right and then left. And you're also going to notice it's doing it. Or if I go down here, it'll do a decimal. So it'll be a very, very small movement, depending on which one of these I have selected. But you're going to see it's doing it for all 3. And that's because what I did was I middle moused over the translate word and then said, okay, translate everybody. If I want to just do X, all I need to do is middle mouse in that field. And now I can just do X. So now we're just doing X. And here's the decimals. And then here's the hundreds and the thousands. Or we can go ones or tens or hundreds of values. But we'll just go ahead and take this one, drop back down to 0, and then it just goes ahead and centers it out to where it was originally. And really, we don't even need this transform node. I just wanted to show that to you if you needed to move your object around. So what we're going to do is just take this transform node and just delete it. Another thing I want to talk about is the poly count. For any individual node we have selected, if you select it and you middle mouse click it, you'll see we have access to a bunch of information about this node. And in particular, if you want to look at the polygon count, this is 458,000. If you middle mouse click over this one, you're going to see this is 1.1 million. I kind of like to see the poly counts as I'm working and not have to middle mouse click on any of these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit D, the D key in my viewport here, and that's going to bring up the display options. If I go over here to guides and we see this geometry information, it's off. If you say always on, that's going to show geometry information down here. You're going to see we have a primitive and a point count here. So 1.13 million triangles, 645,000 points. Incidentally, if you go in here to your background, you can change your color scheme if you want to go light, dark, or gray. It's kind of up to you. I'll just go ahead and keep it the default for now. And if you want to, if you always want this to be on while you're using Houdini, just go ahead and say save as default. And that'll go ahead and save that. We'll go ahead and close that menu out. And now we're ready to start creating our game res meshes.